Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program 2, where last episode we landed on Gilly at this jaunty angle here. It's, very jaunty. We're going to need to go outside, absolutely. We need to run some experiments here. So we're going to just have Jeb let go here. Any moment you want to... No, don't turn off your RCS after setting up a spin, Jeb. That is not the way to go here. Just hop on down to the surface. It doesn't really matter where. Oh, the gravity is so low here. Look at this. Look at this gravity. It's so minuscule. Oh, gotta love Gilly. Oh, that was too much. Okay. We're gonna have to project ourselves down to the ground. That's fine. Let's go ahead and run our experiments here. This is going to be the surface survey that it's running right now. Is it going to automatically run the crew observation as well? Let's find out. No. So we're going to run the crew observation. We may already have the crew observation, though. It kind of feels like we do. Yeah, experiment for the region already in storage. Now we could absolutely hop over to another region. That is something that we could certainly do. That's also something that I'm not going to do. We're just going to head back for now. We've gotten plenty of science out of this. So we need to get ourselves our own form of gravity to go down. But we need to hop right back on here. We're not actually grabbed onto this. That's not where I want to be grabbed. Okay, let's head down a bit. We're going to have to make our way in. Like this. This is more like it. Now we can board, and we can make our way on back. Now, do we want to be in a prograde or a retrograde orbit here? As we, like, try to slingshot around Eve to propel ourselves back towards Kerbal? I am not actually sure. We have so much DV here, though, that it kind of doesn't matter. So I think I'm just going to take ourselves into a prograde orbit. So we're just going to go on the 90-degree marker. Let's retract our very useful landing legs. Amazing. And let's get out of here. We're currently angled over towards the retrograde side. So that's a thing. Yeah, maybe we should go retrograde. I don't think it really matters. So let's just lift on off here. Get ourselves some altitude. We have so much altitude already. Okay. Let's just get ourselves a little bit of speed here. Are we already in escape velocity? We are already in escape velocity. Okay. So that's a thing. Wow. Gilly's gravity is so ridiculously low. So we're going to bring this back around until we're no longer in escape velocity, and then we're just going to look to get ourselves into some form of circularization, because I do want to do a slingshot maneuver and push ourselves back. So let's just bring this guy down. Okay, something like this, and then we circularize-ish here. I don't care about the inclination right now necessarily, but we would just make this be relatively circular. That is a 6 meter per second burn right there. Okay, that is not much. Gilly is so teeny tiny. Let's get aligned for it, and we'll start to warp, although our warp is going to be pretty slow at these altitudes. We're going to be capped at 4x for the time being, and we're going nearly straight up at this point, so there's that. We don't have much horizontal velocity right now. But it's definitely going to take us a little while to get to a point where we can actually warp. We are too low to warp right now. So this is the best we can do, sadly. We've got about 3.5 hours until this burn. And the warp will get better, to be clear. The warp will absolutely get better. We just need to lift up a little bit further. I think it's going to be like 10 or 15 kilometers, though. Which feels rather like a lot at this point. I might cut out this coasting phase. You know what? I'm going to do it. We'll be right back. as soon as we can actually warp. So here we are a while later. We're still at 4x warp, but we are about to cross the 15-kilometer threshold, and I'm not sure what the actual warp threshold is, but it seems to be somewhere around there, right? I think it's like 14, 15, somewhere in there, like 18, but I think it's actually based on the sea level altitude, which is currently crossing over 1,700, or rather 17 kilometers. So that seems okay for now. We should be able to do a proper warp very soon, in theory. Of course, our takeoff point was around there or so. So that's neat. But we're at sea level altitude of 17.7 kilometers right now. Hopefully we end up getting there pretty soon. At the very least, we did cut out about 5 minutes of coast time there. So that's probably for the best. We're currently at about 18.3, 18.4. It feels like we've previously been able to warp at around, I think, sea level altitude of about 20 kilometers is where it feels like. Keep in mind, sea level altitude and ground level altitude are very different things. So sea level altitude is almost certainly what this is based on. We're at 19 kilometers now and continuing to go up. We can see we're a ways away from this being a horizontal burn, though. So we obviously have a ways to go on the warp, but we're only talking about where we can commence warp. My current gut feeling is that it's 20k. And we're incredibly close to that. If it's not 20k, then we'll see. It's not 20k. Okay, well, we're still coasting here. We've got a fair amount of coast time left. We've got like 3 days. We've been coasting at this point for like 15 minutes. That is, of course, accelerated time. So it's definitely been a while. No doubt about that. It really feels like we should be able to go faster than 4x warp at this point. I'm going to be honest about that. It really feels like we should be able to. What's our ground level altitude? Maybe it's 20 kilometers in ground level altitude. We'll keep an eye on that. I kind of doubt it, though. To be honest, I kind of doubt it. I think it's probably based on sea level altitude. That's just my gut feeling. I don't have any evidence for that statement, but it is my current feeling. And we're just trying to feel out where the boundary on this is. So that's 20 kilometers right there. It's clearly not 20 kilometers. We're about to hit 22 kilometers in sea level altitude. Maybe it's 25? I don't know. At any rate, I'm going to cut this out again, and we'll keep coasting. See you guys in a moment. Okay. So a discovery has been made. Specifically, the discovery is, when we were on 4x warp here, these were all grayed out. We were auto-warping, but I took it back to 1x warp. At some point, we have unlocked up to 100x warp. It did not automatically increase that. Okay, so that's definitely noted. Cool. Actually, that's not cool. But at least we have 100x warp now. I wonder how much time was wasted there. Well, we'll never know. So that is fine. We're going to proceed on up here. 100x warp makes things so much easier. Hopefully we'll be able to get up to 1000x soon. I'm not sure if we would normally be able to do this. I auto-warped again. Let's take this off. Does it do it again? Not right now. Okay. So we're still on auto-warp here. Or actually, now we're definitely on auto-warp. Okay, it automatically increased to 1000x there. So that's interesting. Maybe there's some sort of a distinction between the 4x physics warp-ish thing that is going on here and the time warp. It's not as distinct as it is in KSP1, but there might be some sort of weirdness going on there with the auto-warp. Okay, 3, 2, 1, and mark. And I'm just doing a very, very low power burn here. That should do the trick. Okay, so that puts us in orbit around Gilly. So now what we want to do is we want to slingshot around Eve and use that to propel ourselves out of the Eve system. And the question is, how do we want to go about doing that? Well, First things first. This timing is awkward, it would seem. Let's try pulling it around to the periapsis here and see what happens. Yeah, this isn't what we're looking for here. This is definitely not what we're looking for. So let's bring this around to retrograde. What happens if we flip our orbit? We could just escape this way. That's probably the easiest way. 119 meters per second. So is this pushing us out towards Kerbal here? Actually, yes, it is. So we could just push this to somewhere around here or so. Yeah, that seems fine. This is about 800 meters per second. Yeah, let's just abandon the idea of the slingshot. That's probably less efficient anyway. Okay, so let's get in position here. This is going to be a 789 meter per second burn. And let's get started on that warp. Now that we can do 1000x warp, it should be fairly swift. Yeah, this is not too bad. All things considered, this is going quite well at this point. I don't know why it didn't automatically show or increase our speed, but it's definitely noted that that is behavior that happens, and I can compensate for that in the future. Whenever I'm checking to see if we go up, we can just turn off the auto warp and restart it. So that would be absolutely fine. It's mildly annoying, but it's fine. It's something we can work around. Okay, 30 seconds left until this burn here. 20, 10, and 3, 2, 1, mark. And off we go. We did just flip around our orbital directionality, for the record. It took like 12 meters per second to do. It's not much at all. Doesn't really matter. Like, we have so much delta V in this thing. It's absolutely insane. So we're just pushing through this burn. We've got about a minute left on it, and we don't really care exactly what this burn ends up looking like. Like, this is theoretically fine as it is right now. But the higher the orbit is, the more efficient the inclination change is. So there's that. I'm not sure where the break even on that would be. Obviously, we don't want to raise our orbit to be encapsulating Elu just to do our inclination change and fall back in. That would not be efficient, right? So I think we're just going to target about where we have our apoapsis here, and we can just see if we're in a decent transfer window. Hopefully we're in an okay one. Even if we need to do a little bit of radial burn, that's not the end of the world. We've got so much delta V in this. We'll do a radial retrograde on the way in anyway, so that's fine. Not quite finished with this burn yet. Still about 20 seconds. Let's warp this a little bit faster. 4x here. 10 seconds. And 4, 3, 2, 1. It claims we're done, but we're actually not. We've got a fair amount of time left in this. Okay. I'm not sure what happens there, but whatever. It's fine. Maybe a little bit of inefficiency or something like that, but we're just angling to get this about where we wanted it to be in the first place. This'll be okay. Now, we are going to have some inclination here. No doubt about it. Let's set Kerbal as our target, and I guess we're going to need to come over here and zoom in on it. Okay, Kerbal is set as our target now. That seems good. What is our inclination at here? Well, we need to actually escape the system in order to see that, it seems. So let's warp to about here. Goodbye, Gilly. And also, goodbye, Eve. We will be back. Eve is, of course, going away. Oh, I think that's Gilly right there. I saw it move briefly. It's very teeny tiny. But while we were warping, I think I saw it move. So let's warp here, and let's see if we can catch that. Yeah, there's some twinkling right over here. That must be Gilly. Cool. So we're going to escape. That is going to be in 11 seconds. Hilarious. Yeah, I guess we're warping 11 seconds ahead. Sure. So we have now escaped the orbit of, or rather the sphere of influence of Eve. So 2.1 degrees is our inclination here. Do we even need an inclination change. Let's run a quick check here. I mean, obviously, this is bad timing. So we need to bring it around probably a full orbit, most likely, but let's just check out over this direction. That's where we're running into the problem with the inclination. So that's not going to happen over there. Closer to the apoapsis, if we were to bring this in here. How are we looking? Yeah, we're running into that inclination issue. I mean, we're going to be off any way we slice it. Let's do an inclination change, and we'll have to give it an orbit, most likely. So 2.1 degrees is not too bad. I mean, it'll be a little bit of an expensive inclination change over Kerbal here, but this is reasonably fine. We'll just set this about here or so, 436 meters per second. Sounds good. We've still got fuel in these side tanks. I want to double check that our fuel is transferring correctly, though. So let's hop into here quick, and let's just see. So that's this center tank. Yes, fuel is transferring correctly. Noted. So that looks good. Let's align ourselves to our maneuver node. Hi, Kerbal. And we are going to then warp on forward to our inclination change. That'll be in 59 days. So off we go. It's out of electric charge. No, it's not. It has full electric charge. Okay, so we are, of course, just going to commence with this burn very shortly here. Oh, we're still 2.5 hours away. Let's warp forward a little closer. That would be nice. This is much better. Now we're about 40 seconds away. That makes more sense. So we'll warp forward a little bit closer here, and we are currently 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. So that's going to be a 37-second burn, allegedly. And we are definitely running a little bit low on fuel in these side tanks. Now, this is going to take the monoprop with. To be honest, we should probably ditch the monoprop in future iterations of this. It's kind of dead weight. We're not really utilizing it. It was intended for the docking maneuver, which never actually ended up happening. So that is an optimization we could make, but to be honest, we're going to redesign this entire monstrosity, so that's probably for the best. We've got about 3 seconds left on this burn. There we go. That should be close enough. Let's check that inclination. Inclination is 0.0. Okay. That looks solid. So at this point, we're of course not circularized. We could come around to the apoapsis and circularize this. I'm wondering, though, is there actually a point? What if we were to bring this up over here? What is that timing looking like? Well, it's not great. It's exactly the opposite. So that is certainly non-great. No doubt about that. I think at this point, we probably should circularize this. So let's just bring this around. We're going to have to head around anyway, right? So let's just circularize it so that it doesn't really matter where we're burning from. Something like this. 515 meters per second for that. That seems okay. We'll have to do a fair amount of that burn anyway, so that's fine. We've got enough to do that, plus some Hohmann transfer burn in these side tanks. We may have to ditch the side tanks partway through the Hohmann transfer, though. We'll see how that goes. This is going to be 125 days, so we'll warp forward to that. We're not out of electric charge. This is false. We have electric charge. We'll continue to warp forward here. About 2 hours to go. About 1 hour to go. Excellent. About 40 seconds. We'll warp forward a little bit further. 30 seconds, 20, 10, and 3, 2, 1, mark. So that's going to be a 38-second burn, allegedly. And I mean, it probably actually is. We've got this debris here that we never got rid of. We should probably do that at some point. But yeah, we're going to be burning out these side tanks fairly quickly here. But not in this burn. We're going to get this burn completed. We're just raising that apoapsis on up. This is, of course, Eve here, and you can see we have made quite a bit of distance from Eve. So that's looking solid. And we would need to raise up this anyway, most likely. It would depend on positioning, but this is probably fuel that we would have to burn anyway. Okay, 3, 2, 1, and that should be good. Okay, so now we can see what would happen if we were to create a burn around here. How many orbits are we going to need to get this encounter? Well, that is inauspicious. Okay, let's bring this on around. And here then jumps here. Yep, we're definitely going to need another orbit. So let's warp it to here. That'll be 315 days. Jeb is delighted to be spending all of this time completely alone without any contact to Kerbal. This is having no psychological effects on him whatsoever. So next we're going to create a maneuver plan here, and we'll see what this ends up looking like. This is not going to be right. We're going to have to move it forward a fair amount, I think. That is definitely an improvement. We're getting there. This is a transfer window right up over here. That's an encounter. Okay, so let's head over to Kerbal and see what encounter this is. Yeah, we definitely need to dial that in a little bit. 27,000 kilometers. But it is an encounter of some description. So let's bring this guy actually a little retrograde. Ooh, okay. More of a timing issue then. I have no idea where that went. That's exciting. It should be right around over here. We don't quite have the prograde, maybe? Yeah, that's what it is. We didn't quite have the prograde for the encounter. So we're going to need to move this guy to be... Okay, this is now wildly different. It moved to the wrong side of the orbit, I think. It snapped to the other side of the orbit. Okay, so that gives us this encounter. 22 kilometers. Yeah, it snaps around to the far side of the orbit here. That's exciting. But we can move it back over here. That's a collision course. We don't exactly want a collision course. That's 1,000 kilometers. What? No, I don't want to control this. Hang on. That is not what we want at all. Let's head back over here. Okay. What? Why did everything just disappear on us? Lander 25, control. Okay, that was weird. Regardless, we need to continue to dial this in, and that is indeed exactly what we're going to do. So I want this open. I want to go over to Kerbal. Lack of stellar exposure. Okay. I'm sure that'll get solved. So I want to go over to Kerbal, pin open this periapsis, and I want to make some very minor alterations to our overall trajectory here. So that's 800 kilometers. Going down nicely. 200. 45 kilometers. That's pretty decent. Let's take it down to 40. That looks good. Okay, I like that burn. That'll be in 277 days. Let's warp this guy right on around. Excellent. So that burn will be happening in about 3 hours now. Let's continue to warp forward a little further and a little further. Okay. So we're about a minute away from the burn now, and we can bring that down to about 40 seconds, 30 seconds, and 20, 10, and 4, 3, 2, 1 mark. Now, as expected, we are going to be burning out these tanks partway through this home and transfer. That's absolutely fine. We've got so much more DV. So let's get these tanks burned out. We've got about 200 meters per second left in them. Excellent. This is going very, very well, all things considered. We got 2 missions done for the price of 1 here. And those tanks are burned out. And let's go. Excellent. So we're going to want to pull this fuel out of here first, but we've overshot this a little bit. That's not great. What's our trajectory like? I did not intend to overshoot. This is potentially a bad trajectory. Yeah, let's pull this around to retrograde. And we are, of course, going to need to burn a little bit retrograde here. And that'll be fine. I suppose we could burn anti-target, but let's just bring it in. Ooh. That didn't go well. Pin that open. Okay. Stay open, please. Thank you. We're just dialing this in. We don't care what direction we're coming in from, necessarily. I think... I'm not sure which direction we're going to be going here. Let's focus it on Kerbal and just bring it in a little bit closer. 65 kilometers. We can radial retrograde that. Yeah, we can absolutely radial retrograde that one. So that looks okay. At this point, let's warp forward a decent amount. Ooh. Hang on, where are we right now? Did we just overshoot that entirely? What just happened? Where are we? I think we overshot the warp there. Okay. Let's try burning a little bit towards target. We can see right up over here. Yeah, we overshot that warp. Okay. We're just burning towards target right now. And we can just dial this back in. Although this is going to be a little bit of a hefty warp. I don't like the way that KSP2 handles warping to different spheres of influence. I really don't like that. It makes it too easy to overshoot like this. And it's too difficult to choose the correct orbit. So, hang on. I believe we just overshot that. Please turn off the engine. Okay. This is actually decent. 1,400 kilometers. Okay, we want to burn, at this point, anti-target. We did overshoot it a little bit, but this is fine. We can dial this in. But if we could just choose to warp here, you know, that would be so much easier. No doubt about that. That would be so much more user-friendly. Okay. So 800 kilometers, 700, 600, 500, 400, 300, 200, 100 kilometers, and that's 75. That's 61. That's 40 kilometers. Okay, that should do right there. Now, I want to warp to here. 67 days? Yes, that is the correct orbit. It's very easy to choose the wrong orbit and overshoot, but I tried to manually warp it previously and overshot that. So that is understood. Where are we going to have this encounter, though? Yeah, don't pin these open for the time being. Okay. So that's in like 6 hours. Go ahead and warp there. Actually, this encounter is up over here. That's in 1 year, 67 days. This is in 54 days. This is the correct one. So we'll warp up over here. This is where the encounter is going to be. So we'll warp forward a little bit further here. We're going to be pretty inclined in this orbit, but that is fine. I really wish that we could select to warp to here, but we can't. So we're going to have to do it like this. We will head over to focus on Kerbal. And I want to... No, focus on Kerbal. There we go. At the periapsis, I want to do a radial retrograde burn. So this is going to be primarily retrograde at this point. Bring this guy right on around. The apoapsis is currently not fantastic, and the periapsis is not either. So we're going to need to do the other radial directionality, which is, you know, currently clipping into the planet, which is mildly awkward. Okay. So the periapsis here, I want it to be somewhere around, actually 30 kilometers is decent. This seems fine. Okay, so 1,046 meters per second there. Let's align for that burn. And we should also move our fuel. So we're going to grab these guys. We're going to say in and start. Okay, so that's a fair amount of that fuel moved. We've got a fair amount left, but that's okay. We're not going to need it. So let's warp on around. Excellent. So we're currently about 22 minutes away from this burn. We're still pretty high. Actually, we're about 17 minutes away from this burn. We're still pretty high up, and let's position here. I do want to retract our solar panels. There we go. And we have entered the atmosphere. I'm going to commence this burn now. We need to slow down quite a lot. We're not supposed to start this burn quite yet, to be clear, but I want to commence the burn at this moment. I also want to transfer fuel and make sure that we're pulling from this tank here, because I want that tank completely empty. There we go. So that's good. All of our fuel is now in this tank, and we have about 3,000 meters per second left. It is so much. But we're just continuing to slow this on down at this moment. We're still cruising pretty quickly, and we are seeing some heat issues here. But we're just going to continue to burn as quickly as we can here and lose as much speed as possible. But if that engine burns off, we'll ditch all of this and just work off of our heat shield. Yeah, the engine's going to burn off. That's okay. Cool. So we're now just working off of the heat shield. We utilize the engine to its maximum there. We are seeing heat building up here, despite the heat shield. That's a little creepy. It's not building up super fast. And our speed is decreasing quite a lot. What is it that's actually overheating here? Is it our lander can? I think it's our lander can that's overheating here. That said, we are down below orbital velocity at this moment. Is it because we were in orbital and not surface mode? We appear to be holding. It's going down. Okay, we're good. So that is fine. No problem whatsoever there. I don't think it's safe to deploy these chutes, right? It's claiming it's safe. Maybe this isn't implemented. It's definitely not safe to deploy chutes at this speed. We're not going to deploy chutes at this speed. Looks like we're coming down over land, which is... yeah, we're definitely coming down over land. That should be fine. We've been able to successfully do that in the past. Still cruising at about 1,400 meters per second. Let's take it up to 4x time acceleration at this point. We're having a hard time holding attitude that way. Yeah, that would happen. That is definitely true. So we're moving at about 1 kilometer per second right now, continuing to slow down due to atmospheric drag. That looks good. Once we are down below like 600 meters per second, I'll consider it safe for the chutes. So, specifically the drogues. So we'll get the drogues out right now. There's one drogue, and we need to get the other one as well. There we go. Both drogues are out, and they should slow us down enough to be able to deploy the mains, which we should be able to do at this point. Yeah, this should be absolutely fine now. Let's get those mains out. Excellent. And at this point, attitude control doesn't really matter. Let's turn the SAS off. The chutes will hold us in the correct attitude. Let's warp our way down to the ground. We may end up losing this. It does dip down a little bit. We'll see what that ends up looking like. It would be fine if we did. That is not a big deal. So downward we come here. And this was a very successful mission, all things considered. I mean, we had some issues, don't get me wrong. But it went very well. I'm pretty pleased with it. Mains are deploying now. They are very much clipping together. That's absolutely a thing that they're doing. And we're moving at about 8 meters per second. This should be safe. Should be a very safe impact, in theory. We are still warping down. We've got a little ways to go here. And we may even be able to get some science here, which would be great. And here comes Jeb. Home sweet home after 4 years. 8.2 meters per second. This is a nice place to land, though. Okay, we're going to tip over a bit. It's fine. It's absolutely fine. Active vessel is recoverable. This is true. And we have some research opportunities here. So let's go ahead and do this. We can have Jeb let go, and he can run a surface survey. We may as well get the science. 3, 2, 1, done. And then run his crew observation, just to make sure. So he's going to look around and be like, yep, looks like trees. Sounds about right. Okay, experiment for that region already in storage. Sure. So go ahead and grab back in, or rather climb back in, and let's recover this. Confirm. Excellent. Yeah, the Poodle did explode due to overheating, and this is probably the fuel tank that we jettisoned. Which is fine. Well, it is past time to put a cut in here. We're up to 8,390 science, so we can definitely get some R&D done next episode. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Shadow Wolf, Atala, Ali Lee, Dark Horse, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Soccerman12UK, Kentogan, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.